Welcome to the Obscure Files. When you think of family picnics, you think about a park, or beach, or any other setting that could add a special something to your outing. But have you ever thought that you could be having a picnic somewhere where thousands of disturbed bodies were buried right under your picnic blanket? Take a look at this park. It's beautiful. It boasts lush rolling hills and shady trees as far as the eye can see, but looks can be deceiving because just a few feet under the freshly cut grass are the disturbed remains of nearly 5,000 people. This isn't a conspiracy theory, not even an urban legend. It is the true, horrifying historical record straight from the city of Denver, Colorado. This is Cheesman Park, and today, we're going deep into the dark history that has made it perhaps the most haunted place in the state of Colorado. Be sure you're subscribed and make sure you hit the like button if you're interested in all things strange, unexplained, and weird. Our story begins in 1858. Denver was barely a town. It was a tiny gold rush settlement. General William Larimer, one of the city's founders, set aside 320 acres on a ridge for the city's first cemetery, named Mount Prospect. He imagined a beautiful, prestigious Victorian-era resting place for the city's elite, but the reality of frontier life and death had other plans. The cemetery was quickly organized by class. The wealthy took the crest of the hill, the middle class was further down, and the town's outer edges became known by a much more infamous name, Potter's Field. This was the section for the unclaimed, the poverty-stricken, the vagrants, and the victims of disease epidemics like smallpox that took the young city by storm. This outer section also became a boot hill, a name given to cemeteries in the Old West to bury pioneers, cowboys, and lawmen who often died with their boots on. Denver was a violent place, and the executed, the murdered, and outlaws were dumped here by the dozen. In fact, the very first resident was a man named John Stoffel. He was hanged for murdering his brother-in-law over gold dust, and according to legend, both the killer and his victim were dumped into the same unmarked grave on the edge of the property. By the 1880s, the cemetery had fallen into total decay. The fencing had rotted away, cows grazed among the gravestones, and skeptical residents referred to it as a weed-infested necropolis. But the city was growing. The surrounding Capitol Hill neighborhood was becoming the place for the newly wealthy to build their massive mansions. They didn't want a creepy, decaying boot hill as their neighbor, so developers began to lobby the city to get rid of the dead to make room for the living. The tipping point came in 1890. Congress authorized the city to vacate the cemetery and turn the land into a park. The process began fairly smoothly. Wealthy families paid to have their loved ones relocated to better maintained grounds. But the city had a massive problem. Approximately 5,000 bodies were unclaimed. These were the criminals, the lawmen, and the forgotten pioneers. The city didn't want to pay to move them, so they hired the low bidder. Enter Undertaker E.P. McGovern. He was awarded a contract in 1893 to remove the remaining bodies. His fee was $1.90 for every body he unearthed, placed in a fresh box, and relocated to a nearby cemetery by the name of Riverside. It didn't take long for McGovern to realize how to maximize his profits. To save money, McGovern ordered small, child-sized caskets that were only 3.5 feet long. But most of the bodies were adults. The solution, which his workers adopted on his orders, was much more greedy and sinister than anyone can imagine. His workers began taking saws and axes to the corpses. They would hack the bodies apart, mixing bones and limbs from multiple people to make sure every small box was full. By dividing one adult body into 3 different child-sized boxes, they could get paid for 3 removals instead of 1. Body parts were left scattered across the open ground. Open graves were left exposed to the air for weeks. The area became a playground for wild dogs and grave robbers. On March 19, 1893, the Denver Republican newspaper published a front-page expose titled "The Work of Ghouls," describing a horrific scene of tattered shrouds, fragmented skeletons, and the smell of death hanging over the park. The scandal was out of control. The public was horrified, not out of love for the poor, but out of fear of disease and restless spirits. This caused the city to fire E.P. McGovern immediately. But here is the most disturbing part of the entire story. After firing McGovern, the city never hired a replacement. The city decided that the scandal was too great and the cost too high to continue the removals properly. They simply built a temporary fence, eventually plowed the land, and pretended it never happened. They built Cheesman Park directly over the remains of 5,000 unclaimed bodies. For over a century, the city has tried to manage its paradise of the dead but the bodies refuse to stay buried. Anytime the city needs to do work in the park, the past resurfaces. In November 2010, workers upgrading the sprinkler system near the pavilion unearthed 4 skeletons. Their bones were mixed together, a final sinister gift left behind by E.P. McGovern's gruesome body-chopping scheme. The adjacent Denver Botanic Gardens was also built on part of the old Catholic section of the cemetery. When they built their underground parking structure in 2008, 2 full rows of coffins were discovered. Botanic Garden staff are reportedly instructed to keep a log of paranormal experiences, as encounters on the grounds are that common. The most famous paranormal report is the held down phenomenon. Many visitors who make the mistake of lying on the grass after dark, particularly in the center of Popper's Field, report a terrifying sensation. They claim that it feels like an unseen weight is physically holding them down. It's a feeling of intense dread and paralysis that makes it almost impossible to stand up, as if the soil itself doesn't want to let them go. After dark, others claim to see the faint outlines of tombstones that appear and disappear like a ghostly mirage. Shadows are said to wander the grounds, figures in Victorian-era clothing looking confused and lost. There are also many reports of children singing from the empty fields, or the low, mournful sound of weeping floating in the wind. This terrifying legacy isn't just known locally. It inspired a classic of horror cinema. The 1980 film The Changeling, considered by many to be one of the scariest movies ever made, was written by Russell Hunter. Hunter had moved from New York to Denver to focus on his music composition. He rented an old house in the Capitol Hill neighborhood that bordered Cheesman Park. Hunter claimed that his time in the house was a nightmare. Every morning at 6 a.m., he would be woken by an unbelievable banging and crashing that originated from deep within the walls. He described doors opening and closing by themselves, pictures falling off walls, and a constant vibration that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. He reportedly contacted a medium, and a seance was held. The medium claimed that a sickly child, who was the real heir to a family fortune, had been kept isolated and eventually murdered. His body was secretly replaced by an adopted changeling, who went on to take the money and the family name. It is reported that the ghost of the true heir was now trapped, furious and vengeful. Hunter claimed that the ghost directed him to a spot on South Dahlia Street in Denver, where the child's true bones were buried. He got permission to dig and, remarkably, found the skeletal remains of a child and a gold medallion inscribed with the boy's name. If you haven't seen the movie, it captures the central theme of a restless, angry spirit that cannot be peaceful until its truth is revealed. And while the movie does take creative liberties, the concept that Denver built its paradise by exploiting and burying its darkest secrets is 100% true. Today, the city of Denver continues to maintain its paradise. Cheesman Park is one of the most popular places in the city. It's a wonderful place to picnic, take a walk, or to watch the sunset. But the bodies remain, and the next time you are sitting on the grass enjoying that mountain view, just remember that the dark past of one of Denver's most controversial secrets sits right beneath you. Which of these dark stories from Cheesman Park shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and if you've ever experienced the held down feeling, I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the dark, the unexplained, and the weird. This video is part of a series where I discuss the most haunted place in each state in the United States, so feel free to click on the button on the screen now to be taken to the playlist where I have all those videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.